What's going on, everybody? My name is Cody and welcome to another video. Now, this is the second attempt of me recording this particular video because my audio didn't work last time. Let's hope it did this time. So the purpose behind this video is pretty simple. If you saw the last video I did, you guys will know that I actually work with HP as a brand support sales rep. I'm pretty much everything. I do light tech support. I do all that kind of stuff. So I'm basically doing these videos here to answer questions for people. You know, we sell through Walmart, we sell through Office Depot, Office Max, Best Buy, Micro Center, all those places. So what I do is I educate people. I tell people what they do with their products and all that stuff. And I always get asked, is this good for Roblox? Is this good for Minecraft? Can I play GTA 5 at this? Can I like Bitcoin mine especially? Oh my god, that one's been common lately. Guys, cryptocurrency is not the way to go. Trust me, you do not want to invest in that. It costs way too much, and you'd have to take out a lien on your house to afford the ability to make a few Bitcoin. It's not worth it. If you ask me, it's definitely not. So anyway, the purpose behind this video, I get asked all the time, is this processor good? Is this computer good? Is this, that, or the other good? And this video is going to be focusing on processor power. Predominantly, it's going to be focusing on Intel's processors. I will get with AMD's processors in another video, but since I'm more versed in Intel, I'm going to go ahead and do it this way. So a short history lesson is basically going to happen here, and then we're going to evolve with the processors, and I will go over each one. So the place I would start, because you can still find them, and I don't recommend them because of obvious reasons. Their age is a thing. They are pre-2010 processors. There's no upgrade path. We can go with the Intel processors, or not Intel, but the Pentium line, the precursor to the Core 2 Duo Pentiums. Pentiums existed in the late 90s going into the early 2000s, and they kept going and going and going until the Core 2 series came out, or the Core Duo rather. So there was Duo and then 2 Duo, which is freaking dumb if you think about it, because it's like, are you a dual? Are you a quad? What the hell are you? So we'll cover that. Pentium 4s, they were good. They were fantastic processors for their time. They were also the reason why AMD was dominating the market in the late 90s, early 2000s. Most people don't know this, but AMD actually had the upper hand on Intel the second that they didn't decide to upgrade their Pentium line. The Pentium 4 was just an incremental increase over the Pentium 3. Back then, clock speed is all anyone cared about. I want you to remember what I just said. Clock speed was all people cared about. The closer to that magical 2 gigahertz or whatever the number they were looking for they could get, the better. And that mattered because they were single core processors. Then AMD did something that hadn't been done before. They decided to strike a die that had more than one processor core per chip, which gave us the, I believe it was the original Athlon line, the Athlon multi-core processors, which that seriously took the wind out of Intel's sales, and it put AMD up on the spotlight again. AMD was officially kicking Intel's keister everywhere. It was completely just curb stomping Intel, because Intel had this little single core processor. It has no turbo capabilities. It doesn't have anything going for it except it's clocked really high. And AMD found a way to go lower with their clock speed, but they were going a lot faster. AMD decided that they were going to factor in core count over speed, and their gamble was winning. So what Intel had to do, their next evolution, they had to come out with something just like it. They had to come out with something better. This is a brand that everyone's been working with since the 70s, so it's a well-established brand, but people wanted to know if their flagship brand was actually going to die or whatever. So Intel decides they're going to flex their muscle, get their people on board, and they came out with the Core Duo. And once that happened, we have now got two companies that are making multi-core processors. We got AMD and we got Intel. Intel has the Core Duo, and AMD has the Athlon line. So at this point in time, Intel's closing the gap again. It's caught up to AMD almost. The Pentium 4s are still being made because a lot of people didn't want to spend like $500 for a dual core processor thinking that they're never going to need it. They got XP. They've got everything they need. It's 2004. No one cares yet, right? Oh, how 10, 15 years changes things. So at this point, it becomes a pissing match, no longer over clock speed, but how effective the core count is. Core 2, or the Core Duo leading into the Core 2, they're clocked lower than a Pentium processor. They're no longer really needing to go 3 gigahertz. Everybody's like, well, that doesn't look good. We don't want core count. We don't care about the core count. We want faster clocks. And people figured out that having 2 brains thinking on a problem at the same time is better than having 1 brain. So that being said, we have these people that sorry about that. I'm currently doing my job, but so we have the naysayers, and then we have all this. So AMD's steamrolling in this capacity, but Intel's catching back up and starting to overtake it again. And they keep going, and then they upgrade to the Core 2 Duo, and at this point we're in about the 2007 range. So this is the processor you're going to see the most often outside of the Core i3 57. At the same time that we got the Duo, we've got the Celeron line still, and we've got the Atoms and the Netbooks. Neither of those are worth having in a computer. If you see any computer with those, do not buy it. I don't care if it's Dell, HP, Lenovo, Acer, Asus. I don't care. Do not get it. If it's got an Atom or a Celeron, they are single core processors. They are not good for anything except for gathering dust. They are not going to run very fast. They don't support upgradability. They do not have anything going for them. More often than not, Atoms are surface mounted to a motherboard, so throw that motherboard in the trash. Do not do it. So sorry about that. So, what did we do at the time? We have the Core 2 Duo, we have the Atom, we have the Celeron. We've had the Celeron for years. Well, for gaming, forget those other two. The Duo was a game changer. It was able to do everything you could possibly throw at it. You throw something at it, it could handle it. You could play Call of Duty, you could play Battlefield, you could play all these games on PC, no problem with the Core 2 Duo. You could play the first couple Dead Space games with it. You could do Mass Effect with it. You could play anything with a Duo, and it's freaking crazy. And so that being said, we have all this going on now. And AMD's ramping up their stuff. At this point, we got the Phenom series that they're working on. And AMD's is a very interesting story to tell. And it'll take me a while, so I'm doing it in another video. So, that being said, we now have this potential. And we have that potential on the red camp. So, right now, us with Intel, we're at Core 2 Duo. We're getting into about 2010. This processor is now about 5 years old, so it's time for Intel to step up their game. The Core 2 Duo introduced hyper-threading technology in its generation, which was what separated it entirely from the rest of the pack. It gave us a turbo frequency boost if the power allowed it to. It was early era, so only the later model extreme editions of the Core 2 Duo had it. However, the Core series got an evolutionary jump up to the Core i3, the i5, and the i7, which replaced the Core 2 Duo Extreme Edition, which became the i3 basically, just a different architecture entirely, but it effectively replaced it. It took the slot that it belonged in, and then they added new ones, which became the i5 and the i7. So an i3 is a true dual-core processor, just like the Core 2 Duo, But it offered hyper-threading technology, which I'm going to do a video on that one eventually so you guys understand. But in layman's terms, think of a road. You have 2 lanes of traffic, right? That's your dual core. You have a high traffic speed limit. You can go as fast as you want, but problem is you only got 2 roads. It's a 2-way street. So you can't go very fast because the guys in front of you are slowing you down. That's how these processors work. Now, what happens with hyperthreading is you double your core count by splitting the load between parts of the core that's not being used. So instead of having just 2 lanes of roads now, you have 4. And 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16, so on and so forth. So now we have that number, and that was a huge game changer for everyone. Hyperthreading was a revolutionary jump, not just evolutionary. It gave you more bang for your buck than has ever happened since then, since processors evolved to where they are now. Hyperthreading is definitely the way to go. That's why I'm an Intel person. AMD's getting better, but no, not yet. They are not there yet. Ryzen's catching up, but it's not there yet. So same story can happen with the Core i5. It's just it's got 4 cores instead, so it hyperthreads to 8. It's got a higher turbo boost frequency, which happens if it's got enough power draw from the power supply. If it's got enough room to draw power to do it and it's running cool enough, it will do it on its own. And yeah, the i7's the same way. The i5 has a higher cache. It's got L2, it's L1, L2, and L3 caches are higher than the i3. And likewise, the i7 is higher than the i5. It's got a quad core. It's an 8-threader. So, you know, earlier i5s only were also dual core, especially in laptops. They are still dual core that hyperthread to 4, and then i7s are quads that hyperthread to 8. i7s always have 4 cores that hyperthread. Now, where I would recommend you stop is the i5. As a professional person and a computer builder, you do not need an i7. Unless you are video producing, you are doing game design, heavy gaming, or you are doing extreme data mining, you do not need more than an i5. You are wasting your money. It's nice to have, but they expect you to put an i7 in your computer if you're doing like hardcore gaming, you are doing virtual reality, you are doing the HTC Vive, you're doing Oculus Rift, you're doing that kind of stuff. Then you get an i7, because then the more processing power, the better. Now, we're going to wind back a little bit so we can go over the differences when we start going multi-thread. When we started using multiple core processors, clock speeds went down, but they are steadily climbing back up again. Now, the reason they slowed down is because, again, wider traffic don't need high speeds anymore. You don't need as much speed to get the same amount of effort. So you can cut down power consumption. You can cut down on shortening the life of your system because you're not pushing it as hard because it's got more room to work. It's got a bigger set. It's basically a system that did cardio for 10 years and its heart rate barely beats and it's still able to do everything. Instead of you being this fat obese person that's does nothing but eat junk food and then tries to run a marathon, the guy's been running for 10 years is going to be a lot better off than the obese guy that just tried to do the same thing. That's a single core versus a multi-core processor. And so on and so forth. Now, Intel, the big difference here is that unlike most AMD processors, it's easy to overclock an Intel processor if it has an unlock multiplier. That's when you get something like the 4770K, 79K, the 5000 something, whatever, which one it is, K. Typically only i5s and i7s have an unlock multiplier. The i3s, they're kind of hard limited. Same thing with the Pentium Anniversary Edition. It's hard limited. The Celeron has no upgradability at all. And yeah, currently I have a 6700K, which lets me game. There isn't a game my computer can't touch, as far as I know. Like, I can play on at least some setting with my computer. In fact, I run most of my games in triple screen. Excuse me, which you guys have seen my screens. You know I do triple screen gaming. So That's why I have an i7, because I actually built a computer specifically designed to utilize it properly. And so, like I said, an i5 is what you should get if you're going to get into gaming. And if you're going to do YouTube or something, then consider getting an i7. But yeah, so that is basically the pegging order of Intel. Basically, in a short description, it is Celeron, Pentium, Duo, i3, i5, i7, i9, and then you have server processors, which we don't really care about because they're Xenons. You can game on them, but they are meant for servers. So the Xenons are typically more powerful than even the i7, but they don't have video support. They do not do anything that you would see in a mainstream processor. They are only meant to crunch data. That's all they are meant to do. They are not meant to draw up a pretty picture for you. They are not designed to do any of that stuff. The motherboards only support like one graphics card, maybe, because they have to. So no, i5 is where you should stop. Anyway, guys, that should do it for this video. So I thank you so much for watching. If you like it, hit the like button. If you dislike it, hit the dislike button. Leave a comment down below so we can get a conversation going. What you guys think, your favorite processor, your favorite generation, what you think you should put in your computer. If your opinion's different than mine, I'd love to hear it. But yeah, guys, that's going to do it for this video. So I thank you so much. You guys have a good one. Be sure to hit that bell button when you subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.